So you may have heard some of this before. The brain tries to heal itself, and it will give attention to an injury. 4 to 6 weeks, typical. But the brain is a pattern organ, and so it gets in patterns. And so if it turns off firing to prevent a bleed, if it turns off a part of your brain, it tries to turn it back on, but it gives up. If it doesn't change, it just gives up after a while. And that's why people have lingering symptoms. So if you think about the brain as 3 pounds of electrical chemical jello inside a hard bowl, you don't necessarily even have to hit your head to have a concussion. The bouncing, like in whiplash injury, it's not just the neck, it's literally that you still have a contusion or maybe even a brain bleed, even though people say, well, I didn't actually hit my head. If it hits hard enough, or there are little knife edge pieces of bone in the temporal area that basically separate the gray matter part of our brain from our base brain. And if it hits against that, then again, it's almost like a little knife cutting. So when that 3 pounds of jello sloshes back and forth, or just an up down or whatever, that determines kind of where the bruise is on the brain. And the brain is very self-protective, and so it will turn off the firing, the electrical firing, which is stimulation. You've had enough accidents, you might have gone to physical therapy before. Sometimes they do that e-stim stuff. Well, what they're doing is trying to get blood flow, oxygen, and wake up the nerve firing, right? Well, electricity in the brain is doing the same thing. It's part of how our brain transfers information from one side to the other. Our fast processing speed is all like electrical brain waves. And so if we have normally fast firing and we get injured, the brain kind of slows it down, puts it to sleep so it doesn't bleed. And then after a while, if we're young and healthy, it'll try to re-stimulate that. And so we get fatigued, we can't pull up words like we used to. We feel a little slowed down. And I would say, you're at 4 weeks. You might wait another week or two, but probably your brain's in the pattern. And since you've had multiple concussions, I'm very curious to see, kind of what old signatures are there. So what we do is we're looking at how your brain fires on a day-to-day basis. And it does change after an injury, as I just described. Have you looked up neurofeedback? Have you done much research? Okay. So I've already got this up on the board, so we're just going to go through it real quickly.
Okay.
But it's a basic understanding of what we're talking about when we talk about neurofeedback and brainwaves. Okay. So, do you remember doing XY axis work like in school? So in neurofeedback, the y-axis is the power of the electricity that's going up, and the x-axis is the speed. How many times does that particular wave fire in 1 second? So everything in the brain is pretty fast compared to neurological stuff in the body. Slow waves, very slow, might only happen 1 or not even finish in a full second. So 0 to 4 is a delta wave. Delta wave is a deep, deep sleep wave. So we should only see that in a brain if we're in deep sleep. Babies have a lot of delta. That's why they sleep all the time, because the brain speeds up as we grow. Okay? So theta is 4 to 8. My colors are fading here, but trying to show, hey, that 6 cycles in 1 second. That's in the theta range. So theta is also a sleep wave, a slow wave. We talk about creativity happening here. I talk about the suggestibility state. So if you look at a 4-year-old, they've got a lot of theta. That's why you can tell them that Santa comes down the chimney and puts stuff in their stockings, and they're like, oh, yay. You know, it's real because they're suggestible. So that's kind of that state, but it's really pretty much a sleep state. Alpha, 8 to 12. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. That's an alpha rhythm. And it's also considered a sleep wave because when we close our eyes, we go into our rest mode, and then that takes us into a deeper, slower thing. But again, most people only hit delta for 1 or 2 hours a night, and then we're up in these. Then we go to our wake state, and between 12 and 21 cycles would be our awake state, and that allows us to focus, take in even the third instruction from the teacher. You know, we're focused enough to do that, and it's fast enough to produce, to get things from left to right, front to back. You know, it's fast enough electrical firing. It also produces happy hormones, dopamine, serotonin, endorphins when you run and do CrossFit. So that's why there's a smiley face here, because in an awake state, and if I'm recording your EEG, it's in an awake state. I don't do sleep studies. I expect to see a lot of the power here. If we get up into what's called high beta, super fast, you know, above 22 hertz, that's usually we're in fight, flight, freeze. And when we see that, we're producing stress hormone, and we probably feel anxious. So if this is a Charlie Brown head, here's the nose, here's the ears, we're looking straight down on the top. Sleep waves should come up at the back of the head and get really small towards the front. Fast waves, say anything above 13, should be big here and barely, you know, barely seen in the back of our head. So when we have a head injury, and let's just say yours was, you know, I don't know, in the back somewhere, what your brain's going to do is produce big, slow firing. And again, it may not be a problem unless it doesn't go away, because that area, like this processing on the right side, is emotional social processing. Let's say you had a head injury up here, then you would have a hard time with language fluency. If you had a head injury back here, you might have a problem doing math that you used to get do in your head all day long, and now you can't do it. So depending on where the slow wave is, it's basically a turned off area of your brain. And you've probably read enough to know that we've known for ages what parts of the brain are responsible for what. So executive function, decision making is here, right? Sleep is here. Sensory motor stuff is right here. You know, so that tingling and stuff could have been brain. It could have actually been spinal. Don't know. But each part of the brain is responsible for something different. And so depending on where the injury is, if the brain has turned off that area, it's not processing what it's supposed to be processing. And you will have symptoms, you'll notice symptoms like, well, my processing is slower. I can't pull up memories, whatever. So when we do a brain map, we're really looking at the entire surface of the brain and how is each section firing. And we know that we should only have slow waves here, not out here, not here, not here. You know, we shouldn't have them there. If we have them there, it's a problem. And in your case, we can bet that it's an injury since you've had so many.